What does one say to an ancient Nephilim ghost?
I suppose you start with...
How do I get out of this chicken shit outfit?
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
What's going on YouTube? It's Filthy and we're back with another Diablo 3 video. Season 32 starts on Friday, so I thought it would be a good idea to make a video refreshing our memory as to what ethereal items are, what they do, how powerful are they, and talk about which builds are really going to benefit from their inclusion. And unfortunately, there are some builds that will just simply not benefit. Now, the game has changed quite a bit since these were introduced back in Season 24, which was 3 years ago. Some sets have been buffed, some sets have been nerfed. We've got new mechanics in the game since then. So these things will alter our ethereal experience. And it's funny looking back at Season 24, it wasn't like a 150 fest immediately, but obviously we have had quite a bit of power creep in the game since then. We've had things like Visions of Enmity added, we've had the Altar of Rights coming back to be permanent, we've got Crafter and Primal now. Most of the sets have been brought up considerably since then, but some have gone down since Season 24. So we're going to talk through a bit of that, and I'm just going to give you my opinion as to what the best ethereals are to use for the best builds in the game. Now, obviously, I'm doing my best here to make some Diablo 3 content in advance of the season start. I'm probably not going to get everything right, so if you do have any corrections, amendments, please do stick them in the comments, because what I would like for this video is to basically be a little bit like a discussion board where I'll give you my opinion on the things that I'm looking forward to trying. And then obviously if you've got different ideas or you think something's wrong, stick it in the comments. Other people can contribute, upvote, downvote, whatever. And that way we can give anybody who wants to start Season 32 the best kind of idea roughly before it begins as to what's going to be really, really powerful. Because that, at the end of the day, is what we want. Really powerful builds for Diablo 3 Season 32. Right, before we do get going though, as always guys, thumbs up brightens my day. Now, Ethereals, what you need to know about them is they are a weapon class item. Each class has got 3 unique ethereals. They can drop at any point, so you don't have to be level 70 for them to start dropping, but you're obviously going to want to find like level 70 versions of them for using in your builds. So we've got 21 to collect. If you collect all of them, you will get an achievement and you will unlock some transmogs, which is pretty cool. Some ethereals are really good. Some ethereals are not so good. We'll go through them kind of all individually. Now, in terms of their rarity, they are somewhere between ancient items and primal ancient items, much closer to the ancient than the primal, so you will see plenty of them, but as always with these things, there is a little bit of RNG involved. You could go a while without seeing them, and then 4 or 5 could drop very quickly in like an hour or something. That's just how RNG works. It comes in little spurts sometimes. Now, you can salvage the ethereals if you get one of the ones that we're going to go through and you don't like it. You'll get some Forgotten Souls, you might get some DBs, you might get some Greater Riftstone keys. The weapons generally are quite powerful, they've got lots of powerful stats on them, so every single build that can use an ethereal, and I stress use an ethereal because some builds cannot use ethereals, which is stupid, but it's just how it is. If your build can use an ethereal, it is going to be more powerful than it is off-season, because they add power with the stats, and again we'll go through some of the ranges. They will all drop with a random legendary weapon power. So the game will basically take, let's say you're dropping a Barbarian ethereal, it'll pick one of the Barbarian powers at random and slap it on there, and it'll also give you a passive as well. So you're going to get an extra passive and you're going to get a legendary power. Now you obviously need the right legendary power for your build, because otherwise the ethereal just isn't going to work as properly as it's supposed to, because ultimately getting the right things in the right slots for a build is always going to be much more important than getting nice items. So I think that's pretty much all you need to know. You can only use one of them, so some of them are one-handed, like the Doombringer and the Grimishred. You can't use both, you can only use one. So I've got some questions. We know we can add a gift to them and add in the extra crit damage with the green gem. We know that we can augment them with a Caldison's Despair augment, so that's fine. What I would like to know is, do they interact with the final recipe in the cube, which is basically Crafter and Primal, because some of them have got things that roll on range, like for instance this Grandfather here, 75 to 100% damage. Can I put that into the end recipe on the cube, make it primal so that it's got max stats for everything? Because obviously 75 and 100% is fairly decent range. It's going to be much more important to get the 100%. Again, for the all stats, that could be useful. Attack speed could be useful. Highest crit chance could be useful. Highest cooldown, etc, etc. So will that work? Now, my gut is telling me no. I think the game will just simply say you can't put this in the cube and make it effectively perfect / primal, but we'll have to kind of test that. That's one of the questions that I do have. We're going to have to sort of see. Now, I probably do have some other questions. I'll probably just maybe fire those out as we go, but let's just jump into the classes. So starting us off with the Barbarian, we've got Doombringer, which is a one-handed sword. They're always ancient, the Ethereals, and that's why you can always augment them. They generally got a higher damage class on them, I think, than most of the native weapons in the game. So I think they've got like a built-in extra damage. On this one, it can roll with up to 100% extra damage on it anyway. You can get up to 1125 strength, 15% life, a 10% crit chance, some life per hit, which can be useful, and then 100% damage on all barb skills. So obviously you can see already this ethereal weapon would add just general power to any barbarian build. The special power on the Doombringer is that you reduce the damage of enemies hit by 25% for 5 seconds. That's got very limited use. Maybe you would use it on the Z-Barb if you're playing some grouping and doing some supporting. Maybe if you're really worried about hardcore and dying, you would take it. But ultimately, I think this weapon just pretty much is likely to go in the bin, because I don't see the 25% reduction being particularly useful. Maybe on a Raycore build, which can be a little squishy to start off with, you might take it if you got a nice one, just for that 25% damage reduction, but ultimately it's not particularly good. We've got the Grimmer, which is a throwing axe, one-handed. So this, again, it's got the 100% potential damage roll on it, an attack speed of 15%, damage against elites of 15%, whereas the Doombringer had the crit chance, so obviously slightly different there. 100% damage to the barb skills. We've got 10% cooldown roll on here, which we do not have any cooldown on the Doombringer. Barb loves cooldown because we need permanent Wrath of the Berserker for damage and toughness, so cooldown is generally quite important. The special power on this one, it gives us 30% move speed for 7 seconds after killing an elite pack. So ultimately, this would be a speed build type power. You're not going to really use this for pushing. So I guess if I'm choosing for let's say Raycore Barb, I probably would pick the Doombringer, I guess, for the damage reduction, because I think that's probably more beneficial than the move speed. I think I said I'd put the Doombringer in the bin. Basically, neither of these two are particularly great, in my opinion, as Ethereals, but obviously, some builds you have to take a one-handed weapon, because you've got, like Raycore, where you've got weapons in both hands and something in the weapon slot in the cube. And that brings us on to the Grandfather, which is the granddaddy of the Barbarian Ethereals. This one's really, really good and extremely powerful. It is a two-handed sword. It has got, obviously, really high damage on it. It can roll with 100% damage, 20% attack speed, but bear in mind, obviously, it's got a lower kind of native attack speed than a one-handed weapon. 15% life, 10% crit chance, a huge 200% damage to all barbarian skills. So obviously, we've got 100% on the other two. We've got 200% on the Grandfather, which is really nice. Up to 10% cooldown, which of course is handy for the barb, as we just mentioned. 1,000 on all stats, so that's going to be vitality, that's going to be intelligence, that's going to be essentially 100 all res potentially. Strength is going to add a bit more damage to you. And then the real kicker on this is the special power of the Grandfather is +1 to your maximum damage per Paragon level up to 800. Now, plus 800 damage is a lot. That's kind of, if you look at the base weapon, it's got 4,200, so it's kind of like almost 20% extra damage. Think about how much damage a plus damage ring gives you in the game. Getting those 800 extra damage points can be pretty powerful. Of course, you're going to get your random legendary weapon effect on any of them. They all drop with that, and they all drop with a random passive as well. Barb's got lots of really great passives. Normally speaking, there's one or two that you might want to swap around and leave out of builds, so an extra passive on a Barb is pretty good. This Grandfather is going to be fantastic, I think, for Frenzy Barb, because you don't necessarily need the 3 weapons for that. You only need 2, so you can take this as a two-hander. Frenzy Barb's quite a fun, popular build. It's decent for speeds. I tend not to play it for speeds, but I know people do, so I think that's going to be quite an interesting one. Obviously, you can't use this with Raycore because you need the 3 so the charge barb is out. But Leapquake, I think, would be quite powerful with this because we're getting the 200% skill damage increase, the plus 800 damage, the increased damage on just the weapon generally. The attack speed will help us leap about a little bit. So I'm quite excited to see how Leapquake performs with this because I don't think it got terribly much out of the season thing that we just had, which was the open cube. So overall for the barb, Grandfather looks like it's got lots of potential. I seem to remember that being the case in season 24. And these other two, you're going to have to pick one of them for the raid core. But other than that, you're going to try and take the Grandfather. Whirlwind, I'm not sure how good it'll be with this. I still think it might be a bit crap compared to other speed builds, but we'll see. But Barb, I think, gets a lot of utility. So let's go on to the Crusader. Now, this is a bit of a minefield, to be honest, to try and work out how this is going to work. So we've got 3 one-handed weapons. So as a starting point, most Crusader builds use two-handers, and then you take the passive that allows you to use it. And this generally gives you more damage, because whilst you get some damage knocked off for having the penalty for getting the two-hander and the shield, what happens is that because there's just the two-handers got a much higher base damage roll, it works out to be more. These are all one-handers. Now, my real question actually revolves around Khalim's Will, because we get the Steed charge cooldown 1 second reduction. Now, I don't know if this is how the Norvald set worked in Season 24, but of course we do know now that the Norvald set also adds 200% increased damage. If we don't get that 200% increased damage on this, like we do with the Norvald set, then what it basically means is the automatic Fist of the Heavens, which is the most popular build for the Crusader for speed farm content, is going to be better to be played without the Ethereal, because you're just not going to make up that 200%. Yeah, we get 100% Crusader skills. Yes, we get 1000 strength. We get some crit chance attack speed. I just think 200% is probably going to be too high to give up. There is potential to mix this with, let's say, because it still says random legendary effect on it, so we might get the 200% increased damage, which would be great if we did. We might not. We might be able to mix automatic Fist of the Heavens with something like Bombardment, because we might be able to get the Mortal Drama, which does bombardment impacts, doubling and increased damage. And if we can get that and the reduction in steed charge, and when we're steed charging we can automatically do the Fist of the Heavens from the Vigilante belt, then there could be something in that, because then we can potentially do lightning damage and physical damage. But as I say, the loss of the 200% for the lightning might just be too much. This is something we're going to have to test and kind of see, but let's run through them. We've got Astron's Iron Wand, which has got the 100% increased damage, 1000 strength, 15% attack speed. Really nice on this. We've got crit damage up to 100, crit chance up to 10. Again, going back to Bombardment very briefly, remember Thorns can't crit, so they're not much use to us for that. But for other builds that can crit, that's a lot of damage. 100% extra crit, and the crit chance is nice. 100% to all Crusader skills, some cooldown 10%, and then again this has got the lovely 800 plus damage on it, provided that we get our Paragon up to 800. Again, obviously random legendary effect on it, random passive, so that is potentially quite interesting. Khalim's Will, we've just talked about the stats very briefly. I think maybe we ran through them. We're going to have to see how this one works. And then we've got the Redeemer, which has got the Holy damage 20%. So if you are using Holy skills, maybe on Bless Shield, maybe on the Khan Condemn Crusader, that could be very nice. 100% damage, 1000 strength, 100% on all Crusader skills, cooldown. And then we've got this meaty 50% to demons and undead. So this, again, it means there's potentially quite a lot of fishing that you have to do, because if you get a rift full of demons and undead, 50% extra damage is absolutely huge, and that might well be how you're trying to get your clears. There's some pickup radius. Level requirement is completely useless to us now, because the Altar of Rights obviously has got that for free. And then we've got consecutive hits giving attack speed increase up to 30%, and again the random legendary weapon effect and passive. Which one of these you're going to take? well, as I say, Pony Sader, you're going to have to take this if it works. If it doesn't work, then speed farming on the Crusader is going to be a little bit sad, I think. But there might well be, as we say, something you can do with the bombardment. It might be that you can simply just take the Astron's Will and get a whole bunch of extra damage out of it. But obviously you're losing the, as I say, the crit on there. On this one, bombardment's not a holy skill because you have to take the physical rune. So again, this is like a bit of a, I'm struggling to pick this one apart. But ultimately, all builds there will be some kind of benefit, I think, in terms of pushing. Anything that uses Norvalds, if the damage doesn't go on, I think is going to struggle because 200% just too big to give up. But other things like hammers, maybe you're taking the holy skill one here for the extra 20%, fishing for those demons and undead. The Condemned Crusader might well use the Redeemer as well. This could be the best way. Again, that's like a pet build and the attack speed is generally quite good. So we'll kind of have to sort of see how things go with the Crusader. Moving on to the Demon Hunter, I'm much more confident that the Bariza Canyon is going to be absolutely god tier because it was in Season 24. So this is a two-handed ballista. We can still take the offhand, of course, with this, which is great. We've got the 100% increased damage on it. It's got really high base damage, like 4,300 again, which is really cool. We get some attack speed, fine. Armor, don't really care. 150% to all Demon Hunter skills is obviously really good. But then we've got a couple of interesting points on this. So we've got a 35% chance to freeze on hit. And then the second part of this is that frozen enemies are always crits. That's a lot of damage. Guaranteed critting is a pretty big deal. And it also means that you can potentially roll off crit chance for things like area damage, elemental damage, main stat, attack speed, cooldown. So there's a lot you can do with that. And we also get the 800 extra damage again. And I've already talked about why that's a big deal. So this is going to be a really big hitter. Gears of Dreadlands has been buffed considerably since Season 24. So I think this could well be a solo 130 kind of speed build. Once you get it, like your bit of Paragon behind you, fully augmented, and you get one of these with the power. And Gears of Dreadlands really, really flexible with the powers. Of course, you generally are going to want to get your Dawn in there somewhere, but it's not something you have to sweat terribly, so that potentially is quite interesting for us casual players. If you're on a build that is going to take a one-handed crossbow, so something like Natalia's, which is the starting set, you're going to have to take a Doomslinger, because this is the only crossbow. 100% damage, 1000 dex, 15% attack speed, 15% life, some area damage, which is nice. 100% on the Demon Hunter skills, so obviously a lot less than the 150 on the Bariza Doe. Also, we're lacking the 800 damage on this because it just isn't on there. Cooldown 10%, resource cost reduction 10%, and then we get this 30% move speed for 7 seconds. Pretty useless in my opinion. That is not really going to be very helpful in any form of content. We generally want damage over move speed, and again we're going to be getting the red legendary and passive effect on all of them as per standard. Wind Force is quite usable. This is essentially the Yang's recurve kind of version. So we've got the increased damage, strength, which is meaningless to us, just basically gives us armor, dex, which is more damage, that's great, attack speed 15%, we've got this resource cost roll of 50%, move speed of 15%, which is nice, max discipline to kind of fit with things like multi-shot for the extra max discipline being more damage. We've got a knockback on hits, which I'm not particularly crazy about, but fine, whatever. 200% on archery skills, and then again we get this +1 damage for every 800 up to 800 paragon. So multi-shot I think is going to be quite nice because we're getting max discipline always on it, which is cool. We're getting archery skill damage, which is going to be pretty useful, and then we're getting this 800 extra damage as well. But I do think Gears of Dreadlands with the Bariza Doe is probably going to be the winner. But Wind Force is going to be perfectly usable in a whole bunch of builds, whether you're doing some T16 farming or maybe some speed content and you're looking for that resource cost reduction roll, because obviously it can be kind of important. Demon Hunter I think is going to get quite a lot out of this Bariza Doe. Now, similar to the Crusader, there are builds that are not going to use this, like Shadow Impale obviously has to have a melee weapon. None of these are melee weapons. I don't think you'll be able to use any of the other weapons. I don't think that was the case in Season 24, so we've already got one of the sets that is basically unplayable if you were looking to interact with the season theme. Moving on to the monk, we've got the Bartux, which is the Greater Talons. This has got actually quite a usable power for pushing, so 100% damage, strength don't care about, dex is more damage, crit chance 10%, life per hit's very nice actually for monk, just a lot of the regen's going to be good, 100% monk skills, and then we've got this consecutive hits, increasing damage by 10% up to 100, so if you hit something 10 times, you're doing double damage, and again we've got the random effects, so pretty much every push build for monk is going to take this power. It's really hard to give up essentially double damage, so it's just that's going to be one that you're definitely looking out for. In terms of speed content, I think a Jade Talon's probably going to be a bit better. We've got 100% damage on it, dex, which is good. All res is kind of useful for toughness, but we generally, as I say, concern ourselves with damage. Life per hit for sustain, which is really good. 100% damage on monk skills, so again similar to the Bartuk. Then we've got cooldown on it. Spirit per crit can be useful, and then we've got attack speed, again similar, we've seen this in the other powers before, 3% per hit, scaling up to 30% for 3 seconds. Inner Monk obviously is a pet build, that scales really well with attack speed. Wave of Light generally likes attack speed as well, so I can see this being a popular one for speed content. The 30% attack speed for pushing is probably not as important as 100% extra damage. I think that's going to be the case, but we will have to see. And then we've got one that, again, this probably will go in the bin because the special power on it is just not very good. So the Shadow Killer has got 100% damage, 1000 dex, 24k life per hit, the 100% monk skill damage, it's the same across all three. Cooldown 10%, resource cost reduction 10%, spirit on crit again, chance to freeze, not useful really, and then 25% damage reduction for 5 seconds, not really useful. You obviously would rather have attack speed and damage. So Shadow Killer pretty much, unless it's your first one you find, I'm going to say you're going to salvage all of these. I can't really see. Again, maybe in hardcore if you're really, really worried about dying, but honestly, just go for more damage. It's more fun. Moving on to Necro. Necro has been amazing in Season 31 with the open cube, and of course it's going to get hit pretty hard because these Necro Ethereals, whilst they are good, do not make up for the cube. So we've got a Black Box Sharp, which is basically a sword. This comes with poison skill damage. Now, the Necromancer's best build is Nova, and that's a physical skill. You can't really run it on poison particularly effectively. You might be able to do something with Corpse Explosion or Bone Spear for the poison. Just need to bear in mind, though, with the Necro, is a lot of the Necro passives work on having a scythe. This is not a scythe, it's a sword. We get 1000 intelligence, which is of course more damage, 15% attack speed, some armor, which is okay, I guess, 100% necro skill damage, 10% cooldown, chance to slow, and then similar to the Bartuk, we've got this stacking damage effect, so 10% increased damage every time you hit something, capping out at 100. So probably going to be the push weapon with like 100% extra damage. Blackhand Key is a wand, so again, not a scythe. 1000 int for more damage, attack speed, all res is really useless to us, 15% life is okay I guess, 100% necro skill damage again, cooldown reduction. Now we've got 50% damage to undead, so some fishing potential with that for extra undead damage, but we still probably would rather just take the extra guaranteed 100 once we've hit something 10 times. And then the power here is going to be very interesting for speed content because cursed enemies are feared in place for 7 seconds. We know the Necromancer loves a fear because any kind of crowd control like this will activate your Crispin Sentence, and what it will do is it will give you a huge damage boost. So if you're flying through speed content, you're getting curses all across the screen, you'll be dealing damage as if you've got like Land of the Dead up the whole time with the Frozen Laundry. So that could be really, really powerful for speeding. Not going to be so powerful for pushing because obviously we've got the fact that the crowd controls wear off. You generally like to time your own crowd control. Whether just the extra damage of just having a lot of fears going off is beneficial with the 50% damage to undead. Whether that outranks the Black Bog for pushing, we'll have to see. My gut is telling me 100% damage is just going to be the way to go. And then lastly, we do actually have a scythe, which is the Soul Harvest. 100% increased damage, 1000 intelligence, 130 all res, 10% crit chance. Again, 100% on the necro skills, so we're kind of low on the necro skills. They all got 100, similar to the monk. 10% cooldown, max essence of 12. That is sometimes important because obviously some of the necro weapons interact with max essence. And then we've got this attack speed increase, 3% every time you hit something, again stacking up to 30%. Would I rather have 30% attack speed or 100% damage? I'm probably picking 100% damage, but obviously the attack speed will transfer from target to target, whereas the Black Bog you're going to have to build up on each individual enemy you're fighting, whereas the Soul Harvest you'll just get that 30% increased, and then once you've got it, you've got it. So like Bone Spear, you hit a few times, you get your 30% increased attack speed, and then you're going for it. But honestly, Necro is going to feel very underpowered compared to this season because we're losing just so many tiers of power with the cube being open, but still better than Necro off season. I still think you're probably going to end up with a lot of Black Bog on the leaderboard just simply for that 100% increased damage. Witch Doctor is a little bit confusing because we've got 3 one-handed things, which is fine. They buff up separate things. So the Gidbin does voodoo skills, the Ghost Flame does secondary skills, and Ariok's Needle does decay skills. So you need to really be careful which one you're pairing with which. So the decay is basically stuff like Spirit Barrage. The secondary stuff, I think, is stuff like Fire Bats. And then the voodoo is stuff like the Gargantuans and also the fetishes. Which one of these you take for darts? I can't remember. I can't remember if the voodoo skill works with the darts. I presume it does, but obviously it's not going to be secondary or decay, so I presume it's going to be your fetishes firing out the darts that's going to do the damage. Anyway, let's start with Ariok's Needle. This is the Spirit Barrage one, 100% damage. I just remembered, on the Necromancer, Rathma's dead. Rathma, you can't use any of these Ethereals with Rathma build because Rathma has to take the scythe and the shield, and obviously you're not going to get that. And that's popped into my mind because we can't use the chicken stuff, which obviously has been mega buffed recently. So again, that's a bit sad because there is no way of using the chicken and the Ethereal at the same time, because 2000% damage is a lot to not be getting from that. But anyway, Ariok's Needle, this is the Spirit Barrage one, 100% damage, 1000 intelligence, 15% attack speed. We've got this is quite a lot of damage, 100% crit damage and 10% crit chance, 200% increased damage on your Spirit Barrage or other decay skills, and then +1 damage, again up to 800. So Witch Doctor, I think that's going to be quite beneficial for the Spirit Barrage. How far that takes it, I'm not sure, but it is going to be a lot more powerful than like with the open cube. Does it get up to the power of the Soul Shards? Probably not, but it's maybe not going to be too far behind. The Ghost Flame, which is going to be secondary skill 1, we've got 100% damage, 1000 int, attack speed 15%, cooldown 10%, mana on per crit, pickup radius, 200% on those secondary skills, and then this 30% attack speed, so 3% stacking up to 30. So again, like fine, if you're going to use a secondary skill build, you're going to have to use this. Then we've got the Gidbin, 100% damage, 1000 int, 15% attack speed. Again, the really nice double crit on there with 100% crit damage, 10% crit chance. Cooldown 10%, 200% on your voodoo skills. And then we've got move speed, 40% increase pickup health globe, which again is kind of nice. But my concern is just you can't mix these things with the chicken, and you're limited to the voodoo skills. Of course, we are getting the random legendary effect on all of them, on all the Ethereals and all the passives. And we finally move to Wizard, and I think this is going to be a really big hit of this one. The Mansong's Lesson, because Season 24, we didn't have the buff to Tal Rasha. Now this again is one of my questions. things that have had legendary powers added to them since Season 24, I'm hoping we'll be able to drop. I'm hoping we'll be able to get the Smouldering Core on this, that legendary power. We'll have to see. This is nice because it comes with Fire, Cold, Arcane and Lightning, 15 to 20% rolls. So obviously you might want to do the Cold Meteor on Talrasha. You'd be looking for the high Cold roll. You might want to do Lightning. You might want to do Star Pack looking for Arcane or whatever. Two-handed, of course, so a nice high base damage. Get up to 1,000 intelligence, 300% damage on all wizard skills. That's nice. That's really, really nice because Wizard didn't get too much out of the season theme for Season 31 for stuff like the Meteor. Improved a little bit, but not much. APOC regeneration 2 per second. That's nice for Wizard. We do have a little bit of an issue with resource management, so that's nice. Again, tasty 50% damage to undead. So you're going to be doing a lot of fishing to try and get your high clear with the Wizard. On the Meteor, 300% on all the skills, 50% to the undead, and then obviously again random passive and legendary effects. This is going to be nice, but it's going to only work for builds where you were going to take a two-hander anyway. And I'm thinking Meteor with 300% increased damage, with the extra intelligence and the elemental and the undead damage will be really, really nice. I think that could be one of the better builds for next season. We've got the Oculus, which is one-handed swirling crystal, 100% damage, 1,000 int, 1,000 vitality is really nice actually. That is quite useful. A lot of the mechanics for the Wizard revolve around shielding, which is where the special power comes in for this as well. 130 all res is crap, don't care. Increased elite damage, 15% is nice. 100% damage to the skills, that's good, but obviously 300 is a lot bigger than 100. Just is what it is, one-hander. Cooldown 10%, APOC on crit is nice, 5 or 7. We've got the 25% damage reduction, 5 seconds. This is sometimes going to be usable because shields mean you can keep up squirts, so even things like vitality, damage reduction can actually help you do more damage. But again, you'd be looking to use this maybe in a build where you need 3 weapon powers. You need an offhand power, a weapon power, and a weapon power in the cube. And finally, this takes us to the Wizard Spike, which is a knife. 1,000 intelligence, 15% attack speed, all res don't care, 100% wizard skills, again similar to the Oculus, that kind of damage added. 10% cooldown, APOC regeneration 2 per second, which is nice. Max arcane power, which could be nice. And then this is the one that adds the consecutive damage stacking up, so up to 100% increased damage. So the way I see it is we will be using this for pushing whenever we're doing a one-handed weapon, because double damage is really, really nice. If we're doing speed content, there might be an argument for going Oculus to keep that shield up with the vitality and the damage reduction. And you might just be like, well, sod it, I'm going to invest in my Wizard Spike anyway, because it's going to do that 100% increased damage. Vias, which is the starting set with Wizard, is completely unusable with, well, not completely unusable, but you tend to take Chantodos, so obviously again, any of the set weapons you can't really take. So that is all the Ethereals we've been through them. I think the big winners, the ones I'm really interested in, are Barbarian, Grandfather. I think it's going to be really good for Frenzy. I think it might be okay for Whirlwind. I think it could be really nice for Leapquake. Legacy of Dreams Hota, I think also actually, I probably didn't mention when we went through them, but that's going to again really benefit from this weapon. So Barb, I think, gets a lot of value out of Grandfather. The other two I'm less interested in. Crusader, I really think you just got to say question mark at the moment, because I don't know how this steed charge is going to work on season, and it might just simply be that the best Crusader speed build you can't access with Ethereals, which would be sad. But maybe there are things we can do with bombardment, maybe there are things we can do with Legacy of Dreams Blessed Shield, and certainly I think there's something we can do with the Condemned Crusader that will add a decent-ish amount of damage, so it's okay. But I'm much more interested in Barb, very interested in Demon Hunter with the Bariza Doe. I think Gears of Dreadlands is going to be fantastic for solo, just easy brainless content, always going to be really good. And Wizard, I think, is also going to be really nice with Meteor and the Man Song's Lesson. They're kind of the things that I'm thinking of. Barb, Grandfather, Demon Hunter, Bariza Doe, and Wizard Man Songs. I do think I might have a little go of Witch Doctor, just while Spirit Barrage is going to be really nice with Ariok's Needle. I think Necro is going to feel pretty crap compared to this last season that we've had, because I just think that's a lot of power to lose. Monk, I think, is probably going to be a bit kind of meh with it. It'd be better than on season, probably better than last season, but it's not floating my boat massively. And then Crusader, I think there could be something interesting, but ultimately the automatic Fist of Heavens is such a nice build to play that if we can't get that going, we really are going to have to find an alternative pretty fast. I'd say probably the biggest loser, I guess, is probably the Necro. And obviously Witch Doctor in general. I think the Witch Doctor, this is a real pain in the arse, the fact you've got to get each one specifically for the skills. So that does suck. That's going to take some farming, because you're going to have to get only the Ariox Needle for doing Spirit Barrage, and you've then got to find a Spirit Barrage power. But yeah, it just is how it is. So that is it, guys. That is the kind of season review. What's going to be the best build? I mean, best in terms of speed farming, I think it might be Gears of Dreadlands. It's always there or thereabouts anyway. We know it mixes really well with the season theme. Barb, as I say, could be strong. I think the Tal Rasha Meteor could be strong as well. Maybe there's some other things that I've overlooked. What will push 150? I think probably quite a lot of things will actually get there, because obviously the Paragon is going to be good, and because these things are powerful. So if you get enough Paragon, Wizard, I think, could do it probably pretty easy. Barb should be doing 150, I think, with the Grandfather. I think the Doomslinger probably makes the Natalia's Demon Hunter a lot stronger as well, and that's always a good one. And I'm pretty sure one of these weapons for the Crusader will be really nice for the I Can't Condemn Crusader. Monk's always got shouts with Patterns of Justice and also with Legacy of Dreams, Wave of Light. So I think overall there's going to be enough strength there. I think it's going to be a fun season. It's going to take some time to get these builds out, and yeah, I'm quite excited for it. Bit of a long one, that, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back with some more videos soon. Take it easy, guys. Peace.